What have you learned about tolerance towards people after being at Angel Mountain Placement Foundation?
I have learned that tolerance doesn't come easy to a lot of people, and I have also learned how to become more patient with people that I am dealing with. Throughout this experience, I truly feel like I've become a more patient and tolerant person, especially due to the fact that being tolerant and patient can truly come a long way when communicating with people.
After being at Angel Mountain Placement Foundation for a while, how do you think that has affected your human ambivalence as a person?
I have learned to be more accepting and less judgmental as I used to be because throughout this experience at Angelman, I got a glimpse of what other people with special needs lives are like, and I am definitely a more open-minded person.
Less fortunate participants change your self-acceptance. Do you think that you are still the same person as you were when you first started the outreach program?
Being around the less fortunate has led me to become a more accepting person and more understanding. I definitely do not think that I am the same person as I was when I started at Angelman because this foundation has taught me that acceptance is very important and that it can truly come a long way.
To you, is volunteering about making yourself feel better, or is it about making the participants feel better? And is it wrong to feel good about yourself after volunteering? Is it considered selfish?
I think that volunteering is primarily about making the participant feel good, but by doing that, it often makes me as a volunteer feel good too. I don't think that there's anything wrong with feeling good about yourself after volunteering because volunteering is something that everyone should feel good about because it truly is something great for society. There's nothing selfish about being proud about volunteering, especially because volunteers often make the participants very happy, and that is something that everyone should be proud of.
Nowadays, especially, do you feel that schools are forcing their students to volunteer? What is your take on that?
I think that some schools are forcing their students to volunteer. And even though I think that volunteering should be done voluntarily, I do not think that there's anything wrong with forcing their students to volunteer for a few months out of the year. Because even though some kids might not like it at first, this gives them the opportunity to really try it out and to see if it is something that is meant for them.
In your opinion, does volunteering with participants who have intellectual disabilities require a lot of patience? If so, why? And if you aren't a very patient person, should you pick a place like Angel Mountain Placement Foundation as your outreach program?
I think that volunteering with people with mental disabilities does require a lot of patience because sometimes volunteers can be faced with tough situations and patience really does help them get through it. Although I do not think that just because you are an impatient person that it is an excuse not to volunteer for foundations for people with mental disabilities because there is nothing wrong with trying to improve your patience and to try to improve your tolerance for people. Also, even if someone isn't very good in a situation because they don't have a lot of patience, there's nothing wrong with volunteering because having another person there to help is still better than having nothing at all.
Name one difficulty that you might have faced while volunteering at Angel Mountain Placement Foundation. How did you overcome that difficulty?
A difficulty that I faced while volunteering at Angelman Foundation was while I was trying to communicate with some participants. Due to the fact that sometimes I am not the most social person and I have trouble coming up with conversations, this is why I faced challenges when I had to have one-on-one conversations with some of the participants. Obviously, this wasn't a problem with the very social participants. Although, I overcame this difficulty by forcing myself to think of fun topics to talk about and to try my best to get them involved in a conversation and to socialize with them and to not give up.
Have you already had experience volunteering before the outreach program? If so, how is it different or similar to Angel Mountain Placement Foundation?
Yes, I have had other experiences with volunteering. These other experiences were very similar to Angelman Foundation due to the fact that they also included working with people who had mental disabilities. But even though they both involved working with people with mental disabilities, they were also different in some ways. What I found different about my previous volunteering experiences was the fact that I used to work with children with mental disabilities. This was very different because it was a lot easier to communicate with them because I would just communicate with them as I would communicate with any other children. Angelman was very different because all the participants were a lot older, so I had to learn how to communicate with them in a different way.
What do you think it takes to be a good volunteer at WIA?
To be a good volunteer at WIA, I think that you need to be very open-minded. It also takes patience and tolerance due to the fact that it is not an easy task either. One of the most important qualities that someone has to have is to be kind and giving.
Do you think it's fair for society to be selfish and ignore the mentally handicapped as well as the less fortunate just for being different? Do you think that this is one of the reasons that our civilization should take volunteering into consideration?
I don't think it's fair for society to exclude and to not take the mentally handicapped into consideration because they are just as much part of society as the rest of the population. Even though they are in need of better care and patience and time, it should not be a reason for them to be excluded. If anything, society should look at this as an opportunity to learn a lesson and to become less selfish and more giving.